Hello, amazing students. I hope you're enjoying your day. We got 4 slides today, and I know you're going to have a quiz today as well. But let's get right to it. Okay, so if our population is roughly 7.7 billion people, and I really want you to know how to write out all those zeros, and basically it's more than a million, right? Now, 7.7 billion, and it's the total growth rate is 1.2%. Now, how can we get like a number of how many new people are being added to the population? What you're going to do is, in order to make a percent into a whole number, you just have to move the decimal over 2 spots. So we're going to take this decimal, we're going to move it to the left 1 and 2. So in the calculator, what I would do is I would plug in 7.7 billion, and I'm going to multiply that to 0.012. I'll hit equals, and then that is going to give me a number. That number is going to be how many new people are added to the population on a yearly basis. If I wanted to, let's say, see what the new population would be that following year, I would add that to the 7.7 billion, and that number is what I would generate. Okay. Now, just understand, okay, when it is a 1.2%, or if it's a 1%, it's kind of easy. You just move it over 2 spots. But what if it was like 0.4%? If it was 0.4%, you would have to move it 1, 2. In the calculator, you would plug in 0.004. All right. So it could get a little complicated depending on if you get tripped up on how many spots you need to move it. So try to remember just 2 spots to the left, and that'll give you the new amount of people being added to a particular population. So I don't think the AP exam will give you a negative number. It would possibly just stay in the positive number, but it might be a smaller number. It might be a larger number. All right. And just know how it fluctuates between country to country, depending on what's developed and what's not developed. All right, let's continue. Okay, I love this. I love this. I love this. This is called age structure diagrams. Now, before I was giving you shapes, I was showing you that a particular shape or a country has a particular shape, and I was doing this and this, and you probably really didn't understand what I was trying to say. Well, hopefully by the end of this slide, you'll understand what I was trying to say. All right. Now, depending on the shape of the shape of this diagram, each country is going to have a particular shape. Okay, and maybe this isn't the greatest diagram to use, but let me try to explain what's going on here, and then we could go to another diagram on Google. So this is going to show you the male population and the female population, and this corresponds with age. As you go higher up, it's going to get older. If it is on the bottom, you get younger. So an image like this basically states that there is a majority of the population is young and very few are older. This is so what this tells us is that that country is experiencing rapid growth or will experience rapid growth. And so we have countries like Guatemala, Nigeria, and Saudi Arabia, and they're shaped like this. Okay. Now, let's go to the opposite end of the spectrum where we have negative growth, or like this. Now, the majority of this population is older. So this means that there are fewer children, fewer younger people than older people. And typically in this diagram, the blue is going to indicate, pre-reproductive age. The yellow is going to indicate reproductive age. And then the orange is going to indicate basically older. So on the right, where you have negative growth, your population is actually decreasing. Now, what countries would that be? That'd be Germany, Bulgaria, Sweden. That would be China, in essence, would be like that as well, because after the one-child policy, there was a large proportion of the population that was older. In the United States, we were probably experiencing that as well, but we changed our immigration policies to try to even it out. And so what would possibly be the best shape? The best shape would be perhaps the the closest to straight up and down. So you would have the amount of old people equal to the amount of young people, where you're not continually growing, where you have zero growth. Okay, and this in Spain or Austria or Greece, it's showing that. In the United States, Australia, we still have this triangle a little bit, but we are closer to this column, right? So by looking at this, you could indicate what's happening to the population. This means that there's a lot of young people in the population, so therefore the population is going to grow very, very fast. This means that the population is top heavy, so the population is actually starting to dwindle down. These two, the population is growing somewhat. This one, perhaps the best, where you're going to have a complete column. Now, when I say best, that's just my opinion, right? This actually might be the best because you have enough young people to take care of the older people. And here, you have a significant older population and an equal number of younger people almost that could take care of the older people and the younger people as well. So depending on what you want your country to do, perhaps zero growth is a thing. Slow growth would probably be a good thing. Rapid growth is never really a good thing because that basically means that you're going to need a lot more resources in the future. And if you have negative growth, that's also going to be a bad thing because then you're not going to have workers or you're not going to have any military, anybody to fight in the military, just in case your country deals with that. Let me show you another diagram so you could perhaps understand it a little bit better. Okay, so in this diagram, here's another way of looking at it. Now, it's the same diagram. This is the males, this is the females. This would be a proportion in millions between the ages of 0 to 4, 5 to 9, 10. So notice as we get up, and this is the United States in 2014, there are many fewer individuals that are 100 plus years. Okay, notice how small that is. The majority of the people are roughly in 20 to 24, I guess, or 50 to 54. To me, this looks like almost like a column. So this means that we have pretty much stable or zero growth in the United States. Okay, so this is how those ages reflect the age structure diagram. All right, we could look at this diagram here. We have big on the bottom. Big on the bottom is going to indicate that this is going to grow rapidly. This is going to, it's still growing slowly, and now here is more like zero growth, right? In many different diagrams, they're kind of exaggerated, if you will. And so this will be the last one so you can get used to it, all right? And so in here you have rapid growth, big on the bottom. Here you still a triangle, so you have slow growth. Here it's kind of stable. Okay, we're stabilizing. And then here you have negative growth. We're actually going down like this. All right. Know how to identify what's happening to that particular population. Now, there was another thing that I was talking about, and that's called sex ratio. What was that? United Arabs or Emirates. And I was telling you that there's a skewed sex ratio in a particular country called United Arab Emirates. And so let's look at this diagram here. In this diagram here, well, are there more women or are there more men? Well, there's more men in this particular country. And also, how old are most of the individuals? Well, they're between 25 and 55. So that's primarily a working age. So certain countries are going to have skewed sex ratios. The United Arab Emirates particularly is going to have a skewed sex ratio because there's a large migration of workers that go in there for intense labor jobs. And those are typically given to males in that country. And therefore, there's a lot more males than there are of females in that country. Now, I want you to think, you can pause the camera right now. Could there be something that happens where there's less males than females in a particular country? Okay. Now, I could tell you that certain countries do have that where there's less males than there are females. And this would happen in a country where there's perhaps war, okay, where many of the military have died, and there will be a significant decrease in that population. So you would see a decrease in the male side versus the female side. We talked last week or yesterday a little bit about sex ratio, but understand how that could affect the population, the growth of the population, the defense of that population, the workforce of that population. You could definitely have issues regarding that. Okay, so things like war would definitely skew um, the um, the sex ratio. What's funny is if you look up Russia and notice that these shapes depict male and female as they get older. If you look at Russia, I think that as the males get older, they tend to die, and actually in the United States as well. And women live longer. So it's a little fatter on this side. Notice it's fatter on this side. Notice it's fatter on this side because males tend to die younger. And I always often like to joke around. But why would you think that males die a little earlier than females? And some of you are going to say that we're not that smart, but I don't know. Maybe there's a combination of two things there. All right, let's continue. So if you go to this website right here that I left there, you can actually plug in your own country, any country that you particularly want to see, and you can see what's going on with the growth rate or the age structure diagram. So it's a very, very interesting website that I found here. Okay. And so, like, once again, some countries that you should look up is China, Sudan, Japan, Chad, United Arab Emirates, India, and Nepal. Okay, those are quite interesting. All right, let's go into that right now. So if we click on here, all right, and while we're here, what we just have to do is there's a search menu. Let me see. So let's just say I wanted to look at China. So we'll go to C, and then we'll go to China. Notice we're going to have that top-heavy, smaller section here. Not too bad, actually. Okay, it's not too bad. Let's look at India. Let's look at India. Okay, so what does this tell us that's happening to India? Now, if I took this a couple years ago, it would show really growth. But now that it's tightening down here, it's actually showing it's probably stabilizing. Okay, so that's quite interesting to see in India. All right, let's look at Chad. Okay, now we have this big shape here. Okay, this big shape. So what does that tell us about Chad? That tells us that the population in Chad is growing like crazy. All right, Costa Rica. Let's look at Costa Rica. Let's look at Russia. Oh, Russia's all over the place. Okay, but remember how I was talking about more women than males as they get to 90 to 94? So we have 0.4 of the population. Or look at that, 554,000 versus 129,000. That's almost like a 5 woman to 1 ratio. Some of you guys could probably even get a date over there in Russia. Just kidding, just kidding. So that would be in Russia. Let's look at any other interesting countries. Let's go look at the Dominican Republic. Dominican Republic stabilizing. Is Puerto Rico even a country? Let's look at that. Is it here? Puerto Rico is here. Puerto Rico, wow, significant decrease. Could that be because of the hurricane, which is quite sad when you think about it? All right, this is 2019. A hurricane hit them and they were devastated. So, wow, that's big. So, quite interesting what you can tell from a country from their shape, right? And you could also tell what's going on with their sex ratio. So, this is Germany. Notice it's top heavy. The majority of the population is older, and now they have a younger population that has now stabilized. All right, this is Germany taken in 2017. All right, okay, let's go to our next slide. Oops, sorry. Okay, so our last slide, we're going to go back to what we were originally talking about Thomas Malthus, all right, or Malthusian theory. Sorry, having some computer issues. So we're going back to what we initially started talking about, which was Malthusian theory. And so Thomas Malthus was that negative Nancy who basically said that as populations increase and food becomes more scarce, that disease and famine and war is going to basically destroy most of the population. So when that happens, we either have to make more food, all right, make more resources, or the world is basically going to end. All right. So that's Thomas Malthus. Just understand that basically he was saying the end of the world is going to occur because there's less resources and we're all going to fight for them. And war, things like fresh water, things like food, things like land. And is it kind of true? It's kind of true. But I believe that technological advances and as countries become developed, that these issues will work themselves out. All right. I hope you enjoyed this lecture, and I'll see you tomorrow.